Morning.
Morning. Then who kicks off?
Yeah, sure. Arne, first of all, can you give us the latest on Hugo Ekitike? Has he been operated on yet? And just tell us how you feel about such disappointing news for him.
Yeah, no, he hasn't been operated yet. Devastating for him. Coming to a new club, having so much impact straight away. Playing against your former club in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, with so much more to come for him in the summer. Yeah, your first thoughts are then always with him being out for such a long time, missing out on so many special moments. But he's not the first and will not be the last player that experienced something like this in the start of his career. And there are so many examples of players that came back so even stronger. And that's the challenge he has now, and I'm 100% sure he will be one of those that in 10, 15 years time say maybe this injury even helped me to become stronger and become even more ready to perform even at a higher level than I did before.
After PSG, we spoke briefly about the potential in this squad, how far it can go, but how much work do you feel needs to be done by yourself, by Richard Hughes in the summer to make it even more competitive, and how big a churn of players do you think you're facing, taking into account the fact that you're already losing Mo and Andy Robertson?
Yeah. No, I think for the people who watch the Paris Saint-Germain game, they depends by the way on which game you're watching. But if you're watching the home game, I think it's fair to say for me that the future does look bright and that we were able to have more ball possession than them, to generate 21 shots, to have a high XG against the team that is used to the fact that they dominate ball possession. Even if you take into account that Hugo had to go off after 30 minutes, something like that. Alex had to go off at halftime. So if you would see them playing over 90 minutes, being in their best shape, then this team has already shown, as they did in so many other moments, that they can compete with the best in Europe. So we've beaten here at home the other three other quarterfinalists with Atletico, Real Madrid, and Arsenal. So that tells you that this is already a very strong team. But it takes some changes because of what you just said with Robbo and Mo leaving. But yeah, as I said many times, future looks bright for us.
Are you thinking that you need 4, 5, 6?
I don't think in numbers. I don't think in numbers.
Just areas.
In areas in which players we already know that they're going to leave, and let's see what happens in the summer. You know, we are a trading club, so let's first see what's actually going to happen in the summer, and then we also know better what we need to bring in.
Last season you had to deal with the last Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. This is the first Merseyside derby at the new stadium. So do you see a similarity in their motivation, and is your motivation no more slip-ups having really strengthened your position last week in terms of qualifying for next season's Champions League?
I think both. It's always a very special game, and it doesn't matter if it's the 60th game being played in the stadium, but if it's the last one being played in the stadium and the first one, that always makes it probably even more special, if that's even possible. So, and of course they are in a very good place at the moment. So it's always special, but maybe you can add 1 or 2% to it because it's now the first, and last season it was the last. But it will always be a very special game for them, but definitely also for us.
Your motivation? Just no more slip-ups in terms of, because you really, last week that victory really strengthened your position in terms of the top 5 now.
Yeah, but that's what I said, I think already 5, 6, 7 weeks ago. That is always the aim. We didn't want to lose against City away. We didn't want to lose against Paris Saint-Germain. But and I think that is always the aim. If you go into games, you never want slip-ups. So you want to perform in the best possible way possible. Best possible way possible. It's a bit of a lot of possible.
Possibly.
Is this exactly the right kind of game for you? But given the disappointments of midweek to then come into a Merseyside derby, it's an opportunity for your players to really show some character and come out fighting.
Yeah, but they showed a lot of character against Paris Saint-Germain as well, because being the better team against Paris Saint-Germain is very, very, very complicated, let alone if you have to play 3 games in 7 days and you face an opponent that only had to play 2. So they were very well rested, and if I saw that a lot of my players broke records in terms of physical output, that tells you how strong they are and how ready they are, and that will not be no different for the game on Sunday.
And in terms of it being a new ground, Goodison Park always had a very special atmosphere when it came to derbies. It really affected players, it occasionally affected managers sometimes as well. But going in with a bigger crowd and it being new, have you got different expectations as to how this might be?
The crowd didn't affect me last season. The referee decisions affected me last season. And then your other question was?
Do you have different expectations about how this might be in terms of the atmosphere and how it might affect players?
No, I don't know, because last season was my first Merseyside derby in that stadium. So if it would have played in the same stadium, I probably could know what to expect. But I don't think a stadium is loud. It's usually the fans that are loud. So how much of a difference it will be, I can tell you after the weekend. But I think their fans will be loud, as our fans will be loud as well. And so yeah, I think it's not the stadium on itself that makes the difference. Usually, it's always the players that make the difference, and the fans can have an impact to help the players out. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Hi Arne. We've spoken a lot about Alexander Isak recently, but given the injury now to Hugo Ekitike, how confident are you that he's sort of ready for the intensity and maybe more responsibility that might fall his way between now and the end of the season?
Yeah, first of all, it's at least a good thing that we've signed 2 number 9s, because there were a lot of people who were debating why we signed 2 number 9s. Now, we thought maybe it's a smart idea not to be the only club in the world that only has 1 number 9, so that's why we signed 2. And now all of a sudden that looks maybe quite good, and maybe I don't know, people are questioning now if we should sign in the summer another number 9, because he was talking about 5, 6, 7 or 8 already. Yeah, someone said to me the day after, you cannot write the script that on the day that Alex is back after 4 months of injury, his first start, on the same day the other one leaves the pitch with a long-term injury. But it's a good thing that Alex is back now even more, of course. Although it wouldn't be the first game that I have to play without a particular type in a particular position. So I've had many games this season that I had to play that I didn't have a right fullback available, for example. So we would have adjusted to that as well. But it's nice to have Alex back, although we also know that he's not ready to play 90 yet.
And just, I alluded to it earlier, but just in terms of the games that you've got left now, 6 games left, as well as Everton, you've got the likes of Aston Villa, Manchester United, Chelsea. Does it almost feel like a bit of a mini league that you've got now with all these teams that you're playing that are in and around you?
Yeah, of course. Every team is of course focused on the positions around them. So if you are at the bottom end of the table, you play a mini league against a team that could go relegate or could go out of the league. And of course, our focus now is definitely not on Arsenal. Is on the teams around us when it comes to playing a mini league. But our main focus is on the first game at hand, and that's Everton.
You mentioned in the week about maybe having to sell to buy, and you said that Liverpool are traditionally a trading club. It doesn't maybe feel like you've got as many obvious sort of assets that you could sell for money this summer. Is that a concern? Do you feel like there may be players that you might have to make difficult decisions over to sort of generate that money?
I think last summer we made quite a lot of signings, and that's why we traded so much. So I think in the 4 windows I'm here now, we've had a net spend of 150 million, I think. So that says what kind of club we are, and now it's done. We know that Robbo is going to leave. We know that Mo is going to leave. But so that means changing 2 players. Where we also know that Kostas Tsimikas comes back. So I think the first aim is to see how we are acting in a position of Mo. If we want to replace that with a similar player, or we're going to do that differently. And for the rest, I don't think at this moment of time there's a chance of other players leaving. So of course there's the Ibu contract situation. So yeah, then there might be not such a big need of trading a lot if you don't need to bring a lot of new players in.
Well, hi Arne. I wanted to ask you about Liverpool's away form. There's been some big wins, particularly in the Champions League, on the road this season, but the last 6 games you only won 1 and lost the other 5. So I just wondered what it is that you seem to have lost from that performance on the road that you were hoping to get back on Sunday.
Yeah, you know better than me, because I wouldn't say you know better than me, but you know a lot about data, and me also. But I think it's always important to know what game will we play, when. So I know, as you might maybe also know, that we lost quite a lot of games after playing in Europe. And usually, as we also know, that we play on Wednesday night in Europe an away game and or a home game, and then we play the 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. So that has proven to impact any team in the world, and it has probably impacted our results in away games after playing in Europe also. I don't know if all 6 of them you are mentioning all been played after a midweek game, but I think quite a lot of them were. The good thing now is that we played on Tuesday, and the next game is on Sunday, so that cannot impact that. But as we also know, it's not only difficult for us to win away games in the Premier League. It's difficult for every team to win games in the Premier League, let alone winning the away games, let alone if you've played in Europe and there are only 2 days in between, which we had a lot of times this season.
Okay. Hi Arne.
You're back.
The second match against PSG was one of the most intense of the season. How could the fatigue factor affect Sunday's derby?
I don't think it can affect that, because there are more than a few days in between. And it did not even affect us. The Fulham game affected us by being as intense as we were against Paris Saint-Germain. Of course, I have to factor the Anfield factor in, because there might be people who think, why didn't you play like this away from home? Now that's a bit more complicated than people might think. So the fans play a big part in if you want to go as aggressive as we were and taking the risk as we did. Because we took the same risk in Paris, but then they were 5 or 6 times in front of our goalkeeper, and now we could keep them away from our goal by large parts of the game. So no. Being tired has no influence on the game on Sunday.
Michael?
Hi Arne. You spoke about Alexander Isak being your only fit striker at the moment in the squad, and the fact that he can't play 90 minutes at the moment. How important is it that you do try and get him back up to full fitness as much as possible for these final 6 games of the season?
Yeah, very important. Although there are also other players that can fill in that position, but those players have played in different positions throughout their lives more and more. But Cody did really well when he came in the second half. Of course, it's important, but it would have been even nicer. But yeah, you don't get it like that. It would have been even the best thing was that Hugo was still fit. But if he wasn't, then if this would have happened, then 2 or 3 weeks later would have even been better, because Alex is not ready for 90 yet. Depending on the intensity of the game, by the way, because you never know how a game is going to work out. But he's getting closer and closer, and now we need him. But there are different options to play as a 9 as well. Federico Chiesa is also one of them. So there are different options. But it's definitely good to have Alex back now. Now Hugo is injured.
Can I just quickly check, is Joe Gomez fit for Sunday?
No.
Last couple here, David Lynch, 10 well.
Arne, you said this season that one of the biggest challenges you faced is kind of managing your squad through kind of an intense schedule. Obviously that's going to ease now that you've only got the Premier League to focus on. Do you think we're going to see better performances as a result of that? More time in the training ground, obviously less intensity for the players?
Yeah. I think we've seen this season a lot of good performances, but we've also seen a lot of inconsistency in the performances, and that was, in my opinion, mainly due to the fact that we had to play so many amount of games with almost all the time the same players. If you look at the 15, 20, 25 players that have made the most minutes this season, I think a lot of them that are in that list are from us. So that tells you a lot, and maybe that's one of the reasons why we've been a bit inconsistent, why we've conceded maybe late goals, because it's always to the same players. And even the last game, if you look at that game, I had to bring Joe in, I had to bring him out. There were 3 players playing in the right fullback position again, as it happened so many times this season. But to answer your question, yes, it's definitely helpful that most of our players, except for the long-term injuries, are available and they only play once a week, because it's been shown that large part of our group is ready to play every single 3 days, because that's why so many of them are in the top 20, top 25 of most minutes. But it's also shown that not all of them are able to play every 3 days 90 minutes, that they either get injured by that or their performance drops a little bit. And that's maybe from that perspective it's a good thing that we are not playing in Europe anymore, but I would have definitely preferred to play in Europe, because that also gives energy to the group if you go to the semi-final of the Champions League. So I don't see it as a positive thing that we are out, but it is a reality, so we face the reality, and indeed we have a bit more training time now than we've had till now.
The last one.
Just check where James Anders is on. Obviously came off on his return for the 21s Man City. Do you think it's unlikely that he might be able to feature the first team and you'll look for the next season with him?
Jaden?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the good thing for him is that he's been out for such a long time, and he's now getting back with the under-21s, getting some playing time. But I think there's still a large step to be made if you have not even played 90 minutes at the under-21, let alone then play a Premier League game. So, but the first thing that comes to my mind is that he's worked so hard, because I know this, because I see him around over here a lot, to be where he is now, and he's been also so unlucky to be out for such a long time. So I really like him to be back. But reality is not that he's not on the bench for us this weekend.
Thank you. Thanks, Arne.
You're welcome.